Hello, welcome to today's video. Today we will be ranking every US president from a more right-wing perspective. So if you're like more left-wing, then I'd recommend finding a different video. Okay, so first off, Woodrow Wilson. He is my least favorite president. Now, when it comes to presidents, being the worst president is kind of a hard thing because every president has done bad things or controversial things to where like you could see it from a good perspective depending on your views. But Woodrow Wilson, gotta hand it. Just gotta hand it to him. He really takes the cake here. So some of the bad things Woodrow Wilson did. He was very opposed to women's rights. And women's rights, I believe, actually became a lot better. Like they did progress quite a bit during that era, but it was to Woodrow Wilson's disagreement. He was actually very opposed to that while it was happening. Additionally, he was very racist. The cabinet he encouraged them to push very hard on segregation. And during his presidency, there was a huge revival in the KKK during his presidency. And even though that wasn't like directly caused by him, he actually did have a history of not necessarily hating the KKK. I believe he came from a very Confederate supporting family. So him with that background and not necessarily being the type of president that would stop that behavior, I believe it highly encouraged a lot of the racism of that era. Now that's really only the tip of the iceberg for Woodrow Wilson because aside from being racist and against women's rights, he also was the president that got us into World War I. That was slightly out of his control, but nonetheless, he did get us into World War I, even though his campaign for a second term was keeping us out of World War I, so he highly underperformed in his promises. He was also the one who passed, I believe it was the Revenue Act of 1913. He was one of the founding fathers of taxes, in short, and personally, I don't like the income tax. So Woodrow Wilson being one of the founding, I believe it was the income tax. But yeah, he was big on taxes and one of the founding fathers of modern taxes, which is very much to my disliking. Another reason I put him as the worst president. And oh yes, he did make a lot of statements and pass certain bills that suggested he kind of didn't like the modern makeup of the Constitution. Like, the Founding Fathers made a system, and Woodrow Wilson was very much opposed to that system. So he tried to revive it and change things quite a bit to give the executive branch a lot more power because he wanted to have the highest branch of government be his branch of government. So he was not very fond of the current system we had, and he tried to ruin it. In the end, I think we did recover, like he didn't damage it too bad, but he did try to do that. So with that, that's all the things that put him this low on the list. Okay, next on the list, the 44th president is President 44. Yes, next up we have Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama, I guess an analogy I would use to describe his presidency was painting over the mold. You ever heard that term with like construction? If there's like mold on the wall and you want to sell your house, you just paint over it so it looks like nothing bad's happening, but it doesn't really fix the problem. I feel like Barack Obama was kind of that president. Like the government was in a state of becoming slowly more and more corrupt. And then Barack Obama came in and made it look better, but if anything, instead of stopping the corruption, it just doubled down. Another thing to put Barack Obama this low on the list is just the political division of his presidency. I feel like there's always been like the two sides, but during his presidency, I think that was generally when the polarization happened quite a bit. Like it was like slowly starting to expand, and then his presidency just completely, what's the word I'm looking for here? Expanded and just shot out. Like the political division and polarity got just really bad under his presidency, and he did not help that problem in any way. He made it quite a bit worse, at least under his presidency. It got a lot worse. Another thing is the Affordable Care Act, which rather than making healthcare affordable, it just made it mandatory but not affordable. And in the end, that actually made the healthcare system in this nation a lot harder. I believe that now it's up to the states. I'm not entirely sure on that. But when he did that, that was generally I believe that was a very counterproductive thing that he passed. So yeah, that's why Barack Obama is this low on the list. Okay, for 43, we have James Buchanan. Now, most people might not know who James Buchanan is. He was kind of in an era of presidents where they're kind of forgotten about. He was the president that came right before Lincoln. Kind of self-explanatory. He failed to prevent the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln fixed it. James Buchanan didn't directly, I don't think he directly caused it, but he was the president that failed to stop he was one of the presidents that failed to stop the Civil War. He kind of just was elected into office. The nation was threatening to divide, and he just kind of sat there like, I didn't think I would get this far. What am I supposed to do to fix the nation? And in the end, he did nothing to fix the nation, and Abraham Lincoln had to come in and fix everything. So yeah, this is why James Buchanan is this low. Okay, for 42 on the list, we have Andrew Johnson. Now, kind of opposite of James Buchanan, instead of coming before Abraham Lincoln and causing a bunch of problems, he caused a bunch of problems after Abraham Lincoln. So basically, Abraham Lincoln wins the Civil War and gets the states coming back into the Union. And he gets elected for a second term, and he's going to start Reconstruction efforts. But then he dies, and his vice president, who no one wanted to be president, he becomes the president now. And he's like, Reconstruction efforts? No. And then he kind of just was like a lot of the stuff he did as president was very damaging to the already very fragile state of the United States. Like, we just got back together from the Civil War, and Andrew Johnson just comes in and tries to almost mess everything back up again. Luckily, he was the first president to go through an impeachment process, and Ulysses Grant comes in, and he was a bit better than Andrew Johnson. So yeah, Andrew Johnson pretty much just came in and tried to wreck something that was newly fixed, which is why he is this low on the list. Next up, 41, Joe Biden. Now, this is kind of a more recent president, so a lot of his presidency is kind of fresh in everyone's minds, I think, at least at the making of this video. The thing with Joe Biden is he wasn't entirely in the mental state in the last few years of his term, so he wasn't necessarily a mental state to run the country, so I guess mercy on him there. But yeah, under his presidency, inflation got really bad. The immigration got pretty bad as well. The immigration, they tried to like switch up that system and it got all messy. Foreign policies were pretty bad as well. So a lot of his presidency was just not an effective one. The only reason he's not last placed, honestly, is because I don't even know if he was the one running things, honestly. So yeah, that's why he's this low on the list. Okay, number 40 on the list is Lyndon Johnson. Now, Lyndon Johnson is another instance for me where, kind of like Andrew Johnson, I don't know what it is, what is it with the Johnsons, where the president before them was really good, but then they were unfortunately assassinated, and then they come in and ruin everything. Okay, Lyndon Johnson was the Vietnam War president, is what I call him, because he very much encouraged the escalation of the troops sent to Vietnam and was a large benefactor in the entire Vietnam War and the U.S.'s involvement, which was pretty bad. In the Vietnam War, which Lyndon Johnson was very much for, 58,000 Americans died. Around, that's like an estimate number. And Lyndon Johnson lied a lot about the Vietnam War and how it was going to try to like keep the war going. And additionally, he was just a very corrupt president overall, I believe. So that's why he is this low on the list. Okay, that was the end of part 1 of this video. If you like this type of content, please subscribe, leave a like, and comment below if you want me to make a part 2 to this video. Goodbye and have a great day.